Sergeant Leroy Carson, United States Army, World War II. You're in for a treat, folks. I had the pleasure and the honor of meeting and interviewing Leroy, Sergeant Carson, in Lafayette, Indiana, Memorial Day weekend, 2008. It was May 27th when I interviewed him. He's 85 years old at the time, lived to be 92, a lifelong Chicago Cubs fan, got to see them go to the World Series in 2016. I watched that series, probably the best World Series of my lifetime, so God bless Leroy. Leroy was drafted at the age of 19 in 1944, found himself in Europe, fighting throughout Europe, 195 consecutive days in battle, in combat. Now folks, think about that, 195 days, the longest record for any division in the Pacific or the European theater of operations in World War II. An amazing track record. Their nickname was the Timberwolves and the Night Fighters, and their motto was, "Nothing in hell can stop us." I like that. And we succeed. So what a great division, 104th Infantry Division, the Timberwolves. And they fought throughout Europe. Leroy was there helping to liberate the concentration camps. He's actually featured in my Battle of the Bulge documentary and my film on the Holocaust, where the World War II troops went in and liberated the camps. Folks, if you haven't watched any of that, you talk about history, you've got to watch that. It changed their lives forever, these young men going into those concentration camps. And that's all documented in my film about the Holocaust, Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Remembered. Leroy's a decorated Army veteran, 2 Bronze Stars and a Purple Heart for his wounds during the war. Again, Sergeant Leroy Carson, he was a squad leader and a sergeant, a platoon leader. And that just tells an amazing story through his eyes and ears. A great big thank you again to those of you who are helping to continue to support my work, making this possible, making my radio station possible. I want to thank Bill and Mary Claire Amer, Rita Schultz, Sean Johnson, David Penn, Brandon Glidden, Pat Stillwell, S.K. Ofstad, Tom Hanaska, Mike and Sandra Potter, Michael and Darlene Surofsky, Kent Keene, Harry Marshall. I want to thank a couple of past supporters of my work, John Penn and Chet Howard, and there are many others. But folks, you guys and gals are the reason why this channel exists. Like I said, I don't monetize my videos. Some people don't understand that. I don't want to interrupt with a commercial. It's just disrespectful. And so I've chosen not to do that. And you're helping to support the radio station, which I hope continues into a 3rd year in March. But thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you guys and gals, like I said. All right, folks, let's get those 100,000 subscribers, Alvin. Let's do it this year. And I thank you for all of you who have subscribed to this channel and are commenting on these videos and are sharing these videos. That is a big help also, and I just want to thank you. So my heart's full. Thank God for you. Let him richly bless you for giving into this work. So, okay, let's honor Sergeant Leroy Carson now with this interview. And an act of remembrance is an act of honor, folks. And I'm just so grateful to bring it to you here on the Voices of History YouTube channel and Voices of History Radio. God bless you. How old are you now, Leroy?
85.
And what year did you go into the military?
44.
You were 24?
19. In 1944 I went in.
Okay, where did you go to basic training?
Camp Landing, Florida.
What was your job, your MOS? What did you do?
Rifleman. I don't remember the number.
Do you remember Pearl Harbor?
Oh yes.
The attack? Well, where were you when Pearl Harbor was attacked, and what do you remember about the Pearl Harbor attack?
We were in church, and when we came out of church, somebody said Pearl Harbor is being attacked by the Japanese.
And you were still in school then, or what?
Oh yeah, 44. I was 19 when I was drafted.
Yeah.
So I was only 16.
So why did you get drafted into the military then, you
Yeah.
said? And after basic training, where did you go?
Overseas.
Right overseas?
Yeah.
Did you land on D-Day?
No, no, no. We landed in September of 44.
Over in France?
We landed in Cherbourg, France. We were the first division that went directly to the European shore. All the other ones went to Britain first and then came over.
You were a rifleman. Did you carry a BAR or an M1?
M1.
M1?
I was a squad leader.
Were you a corporal or a sergeant?
Sergeant.
How many men did you have under you?
Well, the squad is 12, including me, so 11 plus 1.
Now, tell me where you went into France, and did you start pushing your way up towards Germany, or tell
No,
me about...
we went from France. At first, we were doing the Red Ball Express. And then we were attached to the Canadian Army, and we went into Holland. Fought in Holland, then through Belgium, back to Holland, into Aachen, Germany.
Well, didn't you tell me when you called that you were at the Battle of the Bulge?
We were at the northern end of the Bulge.
Can you just give me a little history of the Bulge, what the Germans were doing, and then your involvement there?
Well, we only saw the northern fringe, so we ran like everybody else did. We weren't as severe as the people down south of us, but it wasn't very pleasant. I lost a lot of men.
Well, I'm doing a film right now in the Battle of the Bulge. Give me a little more than that. Tell me about any combat you had, or some of the people that were there, and again, what were the Germans trying to do there?
Well, the Germans were trying to split the Allied forces in two and make the port of Antwerp. But of course, they didn't get it much farther than Bastogne. Now, we were north of Bastogne, and we saw some German armor and we saw German infantry, but we did not get hit as bad as the people south of us. We fought along in Holland and in Belgium. We were there when Malmedy took place.
Tell me about that massacre. What happened there?
Well, the Germans captured several, well, I don't know what unit it was, but they captured American soldiers, marched them into a field, and then slaughtered them. About 80 or 90 people. We didn't see that. We just heard about it. And then where we really started getting into fierce fighting, well, in Holland we had the Battle of the Dykes, which was very severe.
Well, tell me about that battle and fighting. What kind of fighting was going on there? What was happening?
Well, the Germans were trying to flood the dikes because Holland, of course, is below sea level. And it was a very rough resistance. One place we captured was called the Molenaar Castle. It was an old castle that was built in 1590, and we were ordered to take it. It had a moat around it, like the old castles you see in movies where they have a moat around it. Well, they had a moat around it, and we tried to take it for 2 days, lost 38 men out of the company. And after the second day, or we were pinned down in the field for a full day, in the mud, in the water, and cold. And on the second day, we made an assault on it, but the Germans had left. So we captured it. There was no resistance on the second day. But the first day was terrible. 38 casualties.
People that you knew?
Oh, some of them I knew, yes. It was from different companies, but our company we were the lead company, so we were the ones that were responsible for taking it at an awful cost.
And as far as the battle, the Bulge, that lasted what, from about the 16th of December?
It was about the 16th or 17th of December till early January.
we lost a tremendous amount
Oh
of
yeah,
people, thousands,
thousands and
thousands.
thousands of people. The Germans lost more, 100,000. We lost 15 or 20,000.
And as a squad leader, did you lose some of your squad?
Yeah, I had 7 casualties.
Killed?
Yeah.
So when you lose a man, you just pick up and keep going, or what happens?
Well, you don't pick him up.
Well, I know. I mean, you keep going.
We keep going and wait for replacements. Sometimes our squad was only 5 people, 4 people, until replacements were sent up from wherever the replacement depot was.
So at the time, though, I mean, what goes through your mind when you lose a man? Do you try to help him, or do you let the medics take care of that?
Well, you call out for the medics, and you don't try to help them because they want you to keep going forward. And besides, if you sit there, you're liable to get shot. You got to keep moving.
So during this time of do you remember the first time you were in combat?
Yeah,
Where were you at?
just over the border in Holland. Town name began with a W, and it was a long name. I haven't the slightest idea what it is.
And was it small arms fire, artillery fire, or what kind of combat did you get into?
Both. The Germans didn't want us there, and we wanted to be there, so we had to slug it out.
Now, were you at the rank of sergeant when you went to France?
No, I was at the PFC the first day of battle in this town beginning with a W. We were pinned down in the town, moving from house to house. And we lost our squad leader. We lost the assistant squad leader. So the lieutenant said, "You're the squad leader." So that's how I got to be a sergeant. But
How old were you then?
19.
Wow.
But I'll tell you a story about what happened in the town. I was in a house checking it out. I came around the corner. There was a German. He fired, but his bullet didn't go off. It was a dud. So I emptied my M1 into him. But that was a terrible experience. I was shaken for an hour. After that, it gets a little easier, but you're still scared. Petrified is a better word for it.
Before you got into combat, did you ever feel like you were invincible, like nothing could happen to you as a young man? Or, sometimes I hear that story, and then the bullets start flying, and then you realize...
I don't know that I ever had that feeling.
When you're in combat, I mean, this was many years ago, but are you conscious of the fact that you're fighting for your country, or is it just survival when you get over?
No, you're just saying, I hope the hell I don't get hit. And you just wait for your next order. Either go forward or go backward.
Did your training prepare you for what you experienced there, or is a lot of it on-the-job training?
Most of it is on-the-job training. They teach you the mechanics of it, but you can't appreciate it until somebody's shooting at you.
Did you ever have any problems with the German Air Force?
The German Air Force was pretty well depleted by the time we got there. Occasionally you would get a fighter plane come over and strafe you, but nothing like our Air Force where they're flying overhead and you couldn't see the sun. There were so many airplanes.
So you were in combat for how many months?
195 days. Longest combat record of the war. That is 95 consecutive days in the line. No other division, either in the Pacific or the Atlantic, had that record.
Give me your division again and your...
104th Infantry, called the Timberwolves. I brought my Timberwolf book with me.
Great. Tell me, what was the hardest battle you were in?
The hardest battle.
Or were they all pretty tough?
Well, they're all tough.
Was there one that was worse than the others, or?
Probably Paderborn.
What's that? Where was that?
In Germany. That was after we crossed the Rhine River. Our intelligence they're not too intelligent sometimes. Said, the town is a piece of cake. You're going to take it with no problem. The only problem is that the Germans had a tank division there refitting, and they let us have it. I was pinned down in the fields for hours at a time. I got shot in the canteen. I felt my leg getting wet, and I thought, oh my God, half of me is gone. They tell you don't feel it at first. And I called for the medic. He came over and he says, "You're not hurt, soldier." And went right through the cap of the canteen. A lot of guys ended up with bullets in their knapsacks.
That's quite a story there. Boy. Were you ever wounded?
Yeah.
Where?
2 days before the war was over, in Ragun, Germany, just outside of Halle, on the Saale. I got hit in the head with a potato masher. You know what a potato masher is?
Well, like a grenade, right?
A German grenade. It looked like a potato masher. We were cleaning out I would assume as a warehouse of some sort. And I was in front, and there were two fellas in the back of me from my squad. And the German stepped out from behind the packing crate through this potato masher. It went off somewhere above my head. The two fellows with me were killed, and I woke up 3 days later in Paris. But they tell me I walked back to the H. I have no recollection of that whatsoever. But I made it for 193 out of 195.
Now, but back to the Battle of the Bulge again. I'm working on a story on that. What you've told me a few things, and your involvement there wasn't much. You said
it was minimal, but we did retreat. But we were at the very northern end of the bulge.
Which would be where? You were in which country were you in there?
Holland.
Holland.
Just probably 30 or 40 miles from Aachen.
So Hitler was trying to split the Allies, you said?
He was trying to split the Allies into two and capture the port of Antwerp. But of course, he only got as far as Bastogne, which is in the middle of France.
So obviously, you said you came close to the enemy. You shot one.
Oh no, we no, the one that I shot was long before the bulge.
But I mean, just in the combat that you had in World War II, you came close to German soldiers at time in combat.
Oh yeah, sure. We didn't do any basically hand-to-hand fighting, but we were probably 50, 60 yards from them at the closest.
So going through combat, I mean, I've heard people tell me that when you're actually in combat, there's no fear, but after the combat, that's when they had the fear set in. Is that true, or did you experience
that? Somewhat true, but when you're under artillery fire, that's when you get scared. Because I've seen people just a few yards from me disappear from an artillery shell. You find maybe a shoe or a piece of a knapsack on the ground, and that's it. But you see, in the artillery, when the artillery hits you, you're pinned, either in a foxhole, in a building, in the open field. And you can't do anything, you can't move, and that's when you get scared. When you're actually moving and fighting, you don't think about things like that except, how am I going to keep from getting hit?
So what gets you through the hard times? Your training, your faith in God, or how do you get through the hard times?
Well, you're just there. What else can you do? And you don't want to let your buddies down. So you don't really think about anything except getting through the present situation.
Well, you're pretty young at that time to be a squad leader, and a lot of responsibility there.
Yep.
And you were kind of thrust into that role.
Yep. I didn't ask for it. The lieutenant said, "You're the sergeant now," because both the squad leader and the assistant squad leader were killed. So,
Well, as a young man and being around all the death and the destruction and all that, after the war, did you talk much about all that, or you just put it all away?
no, we didn't talk about it. Not until recently.
So why recently would you begin talking about it?
Well, because people were putting a lot of emphasis on veterans, and they just started to open up. Besides, nobody ever asked us before.
Well, I can imagine you would just want to forget some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Now, did you tell me on the phone that you saw or went to the concentration camps or anything like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you slowly tell me what you saw, where you were, and because I'm working on a film on the Holocaust and the guys that liberated the camps. So
Yeah.
give me your experience. Leroy.
Okay. The camp, well, let's back up a little bit. After after the Bulge and leaving Holland, we went into Aachen, Germany, which is the first German town, and we had to go through the Dragon Teeth. You know what a Dragon Tooth is?
I don't think so.
Well, that was the German border protection. They were concrete bunkers, and they were strewn all over. Supposedly, were able to stop any tank. And of course, you could see it by looking at it. If a tank tried to go over, to get caught in what they call the dragon's teeth. I think I got some pictures in the book of that. But the tankers were smarter than that. They took bulldozers and pushed dirt over these things, made a road out of it, so they went right over the top. But we got to the Rhine River, and we were there when the Remagen Bridge fell down. So we couldn't cross on the bridge. We crossed in boats in a town called Hanif, Germany. And from there we proceeded, well, we were in Cologne, and the only thing that wasn't damaged in Cologne was the big cathedral. The rest of the town was flattened. From there we proceeded on to Paderborn, where we met the German Panzer unit, and into Nordhausen, which was the concentration camp. The actual name of the camp was Mittelbau Dora. It was about 4 miles outside of the town of Nordhausen. And you could smell the place 5 miles away. People in town said, we didn't even know it was here. And of course, no Nazis were in town. Everybody nicked Nazi. But I've got a picture of the concentration camp here. When we got there, of course, it's the same pictures you see of other concentrations. Barbed wire fence all the way around. The Germans were still putting people into crematoriums. And there were thousands and thousands of bodies and thousands of people that were still living. And they had them stacked up like cordwood right outside of the crematorium and were burning. It's something, a lot of people threw up and got sick when we got there. And we killed the guards, of course. They were still there. You just can't imagine unless you see it. And the next day, we brought the people from town to help make mass burials and clean up the place. And from there, we just went on to cross Germany until we got to Ragun, and that's where I got hit. 2 days after that, the war was over. We met the Russians at the Elbe River.
So when you went to Nordhausen, you were liberating the camp?
Yeah. Well, of course, we captured the town of Nordhausen, and then we went to the camp because intelligence said that there had been a camp outside the town. We didn't even know it was there until we got there.
You probably weren't prepared for what you saw, right? I mean,
No, no way. I don't think anybody can be prepared for that.
were you there for an hour, a day, or what? I mean,
We were there a couple of days, and then we had orders to move, and then they left. The medical people left. They left them behind so they could take care of the living.
I mean, initially the shock of that, the horror of that, and did you have any idea that type of thing was going on during the war?
We had heard rumors, and of course the Eisenhower and Churchill and said it didn't happen. It wasn't until they captured the first one. The Russians captured the first ones in Poland. Auschwitz was the more famous one. The Russians eliminated that. And then, of course, theoretically, the whole world knew that they had concentration camps. They had hundreds of them in Germany. Then there were a bunch of them in Poland and Czechoslovakia. And they called them work camps. Over the top, there was a sign that said, Arbeit macht frei, which means work makes you free to go into the oven. Our Nordhausen actually was where they built the V-1 and V-2 rocket bombs.
Well, you were there a couple of days, you said, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there were a lot of American GIs that were there and saw all these things.
The whole division was there. Yeah.
Did you get to interact with some of the survivors or talk with them or anything?
Well, I suppose we did. We moved some of them.
What did they look like?
Skin and bone. A lot of them died while we were there. They weren't feeding them. They just worked them to death. See, the rocket factories were in a mountain, so the bombers couldn't do anything. They had a beautiful machine shops inside the mountain, and that's where the people from the camp worked. And of course, when they died, they just put them in the crematorium.
All these years later, it's amazing that even happened, and people are saying it never happened.
Yeah, many people say it never happened. Well, believe me, I can tell you it happened. We were there. We went back on the 50th anniversary. We went to Nordhausen and visited. It's a national shrine now in Germany.
What were your feelings when you went back after 50 years? I mean,
very emotional. Bring Carson, you get all these memories when you go. See, we took the when all the people for the 50th anniversary, many groups went over there, and we followed the exact route we took during the war. We had 3 regiments, and they each went different ways because we weren't always in the same place at the same time. And that brought a lot of memories back, to go through those towns again. Of course, they're all modern now and big. But in the battlefield, or on this tour, we went to the town that we were last billeted in before coming home, a town called Kreima, Germany. And I found a house that I had been billeted in because it was the only house in town that had a picket fence. That picket fence was still there, and I had carved my name into the door jamb. It was still there.
Wow.
So that
Did you take a picture of that? Or?
I ran out of film. I couldn't borrow a roll.
Oh, no.
But it was still there.
Well, again, Leroy, I'm real interested in your story and the Battle of the Bulge and what you saw at Nordhausen, and will be part of a large story of survivors and liberators. They call you guys liberators. That's why I asked you if you interacted with any of the people. I heard that some of those people, when they ate food, they died because they hadn't eaten for a while.
Yeah, what we did when we got there, we started giving them our rations. But then the medical people came in and said, don't give them anything to eat, because if they eat, they'll die. So we had to pick up all, and they thought they didn't like that very much, obviously, because they were starving. But we had to stop. I'm sure some of them died because they ate. And I guess it's a long process to bring you back from that, too. But the medical people took care of that, and we moved on.
And obviously that probably changed you. I mean, to see something like that all these years later, it probably changed your life, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you can't imagine, in your wildest dreams, you can't imagine what this is like. And, you know, it's difficult to describe it. But you come on this camp and you see smoke coming up out of the chimneys of the crematorium, and you get in there and just nothing but a sea of bodies all over the place. And of course a sea of people that are still living. But they had about 10,000 people there. About half of them were dead.
So can I ask what you guys did with the bodies that were not burned? Did you have to bury them or what?
Yes, they took bulldozers and dug mass graves. And what they did was bring the people from the town in to do the digging and moving of the bodies and, you know, putting them in the graves. Of course, the people in town were very indignant. They thought that was below their status because, first of all, these were Jews. And but they did it.
And they said they didn't even know what was going on, or
They
what?
said they didn't know the camp was there. You could smell the camp from, you know, burning flesh has a terrible smell. And they said that they didn't know the town was there. And of course, there wasn't a Nazi in Nordhausen. Everybody said, "Nicht Nazi." They all didn't like Hitler. So,
You said you killed all the guards.
yeah.
So the guards were still there when you got there?
Yeah, most of them were female.
Really?
Yeah, they lined them up and shot them.
Were you part of that detail?
No,
or that was just
no, I wasn't part of that detail. I'm not sure that detail wasn't spontaneous.
How about some of your friends or some of the other GIs? I mean, maybe that first night, did you guys talk about it, or was everybody silent? Or, I mean,
Pretty silent, but yeah, some people talked about it. And what can you say? It's just there, and you wonder how can anybody do that to some other people?
how do you think Hitler was able to do that? Or maybe it wasn't just him. I don't know.
Well, it was the SS that did that. Hitler had he was just maniacal about the Jewish people. And he blamed the Jews for the Weimar Republic after World War I and for the collapse of Germany after World War I. And he just had it in his mind that he had to eliminate it. And you have to remember, Hitler was Jewish. His grandparents were Jewish. Of course, that wasn't well known, but what was his name? It wasn't Hitler. I can't think of it right. But it was a name that was Jewish. And of course, he hid that from everybody. I'm sure some people knew it. But
Well, you made mention of the fact that, you know, how can people do this to other people? That's one of those questions maybe that's hard to answer. Or I've heard the question, how could a loving God allow something like this to happen? I mean, those are some questions I've had, or, you know, I've had answers to them, but I don't know how you feel about that. How can something like that happen?
I don't know. I just don't know.
And they was told that Germany was a country of culture.
Yes.
And, you know, it's amazing. And I've got this from some of the survivors, the people that were in the camps. We've interviewed people that were at Auschwitz and some of these camps that you're talking about. And it's just amazing that they survived.
Yeah. We when we were at the we had a reunion in Washington, and we went over to the Holocaust Museum. And of course, when we were there was a long, long line waiting to get in. And I had my cap on, and this usher came up and he says, "You're a liberator. Come with me." So we got to the head of the line. He took us upstairs. I didn't even have to pay the fee.
That's great.
And they had a movie about us, our division there, showing us liberating the camp. And Eisenhower came there. But that brought a lot of memories back. But that was funny. This guy said, "You're a liberator. Come with me."
Good for you. How did that museum impact you? How long ago did you go there? Was it been a while?
When was Washington? 5 or 6 years ago.
I'm sure that was an emotional.
Oh, very emotional, yeah. Particularly when we saw the clip on our division liberating the camp.
So did Eisenhower go to that camp?
Yeah. They showed him there. I didn't see him. Of course, he came long after we left.
So you were there a couple of days and it was time to leave, huh?
Time to move on to the next town.
So where were you when the war ended? Were you in hospital?
I was in hospital in Paris, 62nd General Hospital in Paris, France. I didn't like Paris.
So you went back home after that then?
No, I went back to my division. I was only in the hospital about a week, 2 weeks at the outside. By that time the war was over and the troops were just billeted in towns waiting to be sent back home. And we were in a town called Croima. And I went back and joined my company at that point. Then we moved to Camp Lucky Strike in France. And there we got on boats and came back to New York.
I think you called me twice.
Yeah.
When you saw the article in the paper, what prompted you to call me?
Well, because I wanted to tell the story.
And I'm glad you did. This is very important what you're sharing today. And I can tell you most definitely I will use some of your story in my next 2 films. So
Good.
That story will live on for many years through our schools, and I go into schools a lot, public television. So I'm glad that we're talking today. This is good information, and I'm very pleased that you came today. This is good that you're doing this, Leroy. Do you have children?
Yep, my 3 kids, 3 monsters.
So you think they might be interested in this story?
Oh, yes.
Because I'll get you a copy on a DVD. But how long you guys been married?
60 years.
Good for you. That's quite a feat today.
Unusual, huh?
So did you know her during the war?
Oh, yeah. We met before the war.
Okay.
And we didn't get married till 3 years after the war.
Yeah.
See, I was a junior in college when I got drafted. Then I went back on the GI Bill and finished that and took my graduate work.
This is probably an obvious answer, but after going through combat and what you saw in World War II and coming home, is it a process? I mean, I asked you the question. Do you just put some of that out of your mind? But was it hard to come home and transition back into civilian life after going through all that?
I don't think I had too much of a problem transitioning.
So I know, like a lot of the Vietnam vets, they still have a hard time.
Oh, that was a bad war. I like to say that we were in the clean war as opposed to the people in the Pacific. We didn't have that crud to go through in the Pacific. We didn't have any jungle. We had mud, but we didn't have any jungle. We didn't have any bugs. Just Germans.
Tell me about any of the tanks. Did you come across the German tanks?
Oh, yes.
Tell me about. I hear stories about the Panzer divisions, the Tiger tanks. Tell me about any encounters you had with the tanks.
Well, we actually we were our battalion had attached to us a portion of the 3rd Armored Division. So
My
we were
uncle was a part of that.
what, the 3rd
Third
Armored?
Armored, yep.
Oh, maybe he was with our group.
He was with Patton's group, so whatever.
No, 3rd Armored wasn't
Well,
Patton.
what was Patton then?
Patton was
No, I think
1st Armored. No, 3rd Armored was in. Patton was down south. We were up north.
Okay, well, it might have been the Third Armored, and Patton may have had nothing to do with it. He might have
And
been.
3rd Armored was, of course, an armored division, tank division. But we had a portion of the 3rd Armored attached to us, and we rode on tanks. We didn't walk, we didn't ride on trucks, we rode on tanks. Every once in a while, a guy would fall off and get killed. You know, when you're traveling, he fell off and another tank would run him over. But because our artillery couldn't keep up with us. So what they did was give us tanks to act as our artillery.
Okay.
And they would bomb the town when we'd go into the town. Then we'd get on the tanks and move to the next town. But yeah, we met some tanks, and the German tanks just made mincemeat out of ours. You hit the German tank, it was like hitting them with a tennis ball. It just bounced right off. One shot from the German tank and ours was gone. Now later, toward the end of the war, they got some heavy Shermans, which could stand up to the German, but not to the Panther or the Tiger. Those were our big tanks. They had a 3-foot tread on them. And anything they hit, because they had 88s, and the 88 was a terrible weapon. It started out as an anti-aircraft weapon. Then they learned they could turn it horizontal and use it artillery. And it was mean. You could tell the 88 from the other German artillery. It had a very distinct sound, very low rumble.
Did you ever come head on with one of those and have to duck
A
out
tank?
of the way?
Oh yeah. Dive into a hole and hope they don't see you, because they would machine gun you, or run the tank over the hole.
So how would you knock a tank out?
With the
Tread?
yeah, if you shoot the tread off, they're dead. And then you use the bazooka. The Germans' counterpart to that was called a Panzerfaust. But if you could hit their tread, they were dead.
Yeah, I can imagine the sound of it, the destruction of that tank, and but you know, does the war seem like 60 years ago or like yesterday sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes it's yesterday. Sometimes when I think about it.
And you know, with Memorial Day a couple of days ago, and the country kind of remembering those that have died. I mean, have you been to the World War II Memorial?
Twice.
Okay, so you've been there. You know, what are your thoughts on Memorial Day or Veterans Day? I mean, as a veteran, do those days mean a lot to you?
Yeah, I think about my old buddies. Actually, all the people in my squad are dead. I'm the last one.
Did you stay in touch with any of them?
Oh yeah.
Did you ever go to reunions?
We go to a reunion every year.
Where's it this year?
Portland, Oregon.
Is this just World War II veterans?
Yeah.
How many
Just our division.
How many are left?
Well, when the first reunion, there were 3,000 veterans, plus auxiliary wives, kids, whatever. In our last reunion, we had 225 or 250? 250 veterans and about 300 wives, children, grandparents, and so forth. This may be our last reunion.
What date is it?
August 27th to Labor Day.
Okay, in Portland, Oregon?
Portland, Oregon.
Who would I, if I were to go to that for whatever reason? Now, were all these people at Nordhausen? Did all these people go into the camp?
Not necessarily.
Okay, but they were all.
Our regiment went into the camp. The other regiments may not have been there.
Okay. But
See,
now-
we had the three regiments go in different directions. You don't always stay together.
But you were all in the Battle of the Bulge?
Well, the whole division was, yes.
This would be interesting. Who heads up that reunion? Is there somebody that maybe after the interview you can give me some information?
Here, I'll give you his name.
I wouldn't mind just checking into it possibly. That would be neat. I don't know. Tracy's grandfather's a Battle of the Bulge veteran. What infantry are you in?
99.
He was with the 99.
I don't know that division.
That was primarily a Pennsylvania division, and most of them didn't do so well at the Bulge. So.
Yeah.
What did I do with that?
Well, we can talk about it. We'll look for that in a second.
Yeah, okay.
We can finish the interview, but a couple of questions beyond combat. You know, I asked this question about freedom, and I talked to kids in schools about the freedoms that we have in our country. You, as a veteran, what does freedom mean to you?
What does freedom mean to me? Being able to do what I want within the law, not having Big Brother look over my shoulder.
Did you feel like you fought for the freedoms we have today? Or is it different today?
Well, I don't know that we were fighting for freedom at the time. We were fighting because we had an enemy. He started on the Pacific, and then Hitler should never have declared war on the United States. We wouldn't have gone over had he not, because we were only going to fight in the Pacific War. So I guess being left alone, you know, do what I want to do, when I want to do it.
How about the American flag? What does that mean to you and represent to you?
Well, it's just a symbol of our country. That's a flag is a flag. And it's a symbol of our country. That
You're proud to be a World War II veteran?
oh yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't want to do it again. I think the next time I might hide.
And people thank you for your service?
Yes, all the time.
How does that make you feel?
Very good.
I mean, when you're talking to me and I'm listening to you, I'm imagining you back during the war, 19 years old, carried an M1, you said?
Yeah.
And, you know, fighting for our country. Did he bring pictures?
Yes.
What do you think of when you see these pictures back during then? I mean, what goes through your mind? You were young and good looking, and I mean, you were John Wayne. You're not John Wayne, but you know what I'm saying. To me, you're a hero. You won't admit it yourself, but I mean, you did amazing things.
Well, we did what we had to do. You improvise a lot. Not everything goes the way you want it to go, but the main thing is you got back in one piece. Unfortunately, a lot of people didn't. And we went to, during our last battlefield tour, we went to see the graves of our people in France. And that brings you back a lot of emotion, because you know, here's a guy that you ate with, you slept with, and he's no longer with us.
You lost friends, people you knew.
Oh, sure. Well, I lost all my squad. I lost 7 in my squad. So, yes. Of course, I still see a lot of the people that I knew at the conventions. Because it's a pretty loyal group that come to the conventions.
You guys are going to Portland?
Yeah.
So when you lose men in your squad, do you take responsibility for that, or how?
Well, sometimes it's your responsibility because you tell them what to do. Somebody tells you what to do, and then you tell your men what to do, and of course you lose some when you do that, and it, you know, that's a hell of a responsibility to go out and say, go out and get yourself killed. But that's essentially what you're doing when you're telling them to do that.
It's an amazing story you're telling me. I mean, again, how old are you now again, Leroy?
85.
Okay. How's your health? You doing pretty good?
Yeah, I think
You
so.
look good.
Still on the right side of the sod.
And But no, I think your story is fantastic, and I'm glad you called me twice.
No, the first time I thought that the thing got kind of garbled, and I didn't know if you got the message.
Yeah, no, I got it. I'm glad, like I said, you called. But do you think our country is forgetting about World War II?
Forgetting? No, I think it's a reawakening because now more people talk about it. And I've had people come up to me in the street, and say thank you for your service. No, I think it's reawakening. Some of the other wars don't get treated as well. Still, a lot of people, they are kind of down on the Vietnam War. Some of them are down on the Korean War, although I don't think as many as with Vietnam. The Vietnam people got really shafted.
Well, you mentioned this was a clean war. The war in Europe was.
Well, by clean war, I mean you didn't have to worry about the insects. You didn't have to worry about jungle rot. We were, I don't know, that's what I call a clean war. I keep telling guys I know from the Pacific that you had a hell of a harder war than we did. You got a lot of people killed, but we did too. But we didn't have the natural stuff that they ran into.
Yeah.
And most of their war was amphibious landings on beaches, which is a terrible sight. We only had one. Well, of course, we had Italy and Germany, but basically only one big amphibious landing.
We're just about done. Is there anything else maybe you were going to tell me today that you haven't about, particularly the Battle of the Bulge, possibly, or any more about the Holocaust, the concentration camp? Because you covered it pretty well. But is there anything else maybe you haven't told me that maybe you would have told me?
Well,
I think you've done well. I mean, you've talked about this before to somebody.
yeah. I have a record in the Library of Congress. I had made 2 interviews. One was sponsored by the Chicago Historical Society, and the other one was by Senator Lugar. The one I did for the Historical Society was when that anthrax scare was on. And the library sent the thing in by ordinary mail, and it got incinerated when they were x-raying everything. They were told to send it in by UPS, but they sent it by order. So that one was destroyed. The other one I did for Senator Lugar is there. I have a record of that one at home.
Well, at the end of my interviews, I ask the veterans to give me a salute into the camera. When I ask you, can you do that for me from where you're seated?
Why, sure.
Just give me a second here. Okay. Look right into the camera. Go ahead, Leroy. Great.